from Bahasa Indonesia to English and English to Bahasa Indonesia. For those needed, please obtain the device outside of the ballroom. We also request everyone to not bring any food to the ballroom. You may bring your snack to the classroom, but only snacks and drink. And please, if you do not consent for your photograph or video to be taken, wear your no photo, no video pin on a place where the pin will be visible to our photographers and videographers.
And if any of you feel like you've lost your belongings, you may go to the Lost and Found section at the multimedia room. And lastly, please close the door after you came in and out of the room. Thank you. Again, all participants who have entered the room, may I have your attention please? You may all be seated and make yourself comfortable. And most importantly, please switch off your phones to silent mode to prevent any distraction during the event. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greetings of virtue, and may peace be upon us all. Distinguished guests, participants, fellow activists, and human rights defenders, good morning. How are you? I hope all of you are doing great, and we are very delighted to welcome you to the Day 2 of ASEAN Civil Society Conference, or ASEAN People's Forum, ACSC APF at Yatmajaya Catholic University. Allow us to introduce ourselves first. My name is Rafaelia Zahara Elviana.
And my name is Claristi. And today the both of us will be accompanying all of you as the MC of today's event. Before we begin, allow me to read the main agendas of today's event. Starting from plenary discussion 3 with the themes regarding People's Forum with ASEAN representatives. Last but not least, there will be a parallel breakout workshop. To begin the agenda, let us call the Chair of Safety and Security Committee and Co-Chair of the Regional Program Committee to lead us on the following items, which are: first, reminder to the conference Safety and Security, and the second is Recap Day 1. Everyone, please welcome Meila, Lini, Putri, and Hanung.
Good morning everybody here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So Mas, Mbak Putri and Mbak Lini, will you join Mas Hanung? Yes, thank you. Good morning. How are you today? I hope we hope that you are good, feeling well and fresh to start the day. We have from this morning to this afternoon workshop, plenary sessions. I think everyone's here ready to start the ACSC APF for this Saturday. So then my name is Meila. I will delivering some protocols on security and safety management for this day. This is our from our last day. So we have notes, some to talk to everyone here. For the first is live streaming. We know that everyone's questioning about this. In regard with our safety and security on social media, so please that every live streaming on social media like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, every social media you have, it's prohibited except from the official ACSC APF social media. But if you want to make it hybrid in Zoom meeting, especially for the workshop, you can use it, but not with social media live streaming, right? I hope everybody can difference between social media and webinar. So then, photos and videos are allowed, but make sure to ask permission and respect with our college, with no photos and no videos budgets. We know that this budget is very small, but just ask permissions for every photos and videos you take in these sessions. So you can upload all the full live stream video right after the agenda. So for the second, for the emergency response, we have our barcode here. You can use this WhatsApp or Signal numbers to report for any response or emergency cases. For example, intimidations or sexual harassments, or maybe for your health issues. Also regarding with the sexual harassment and intimidations, we have our own lawyers team. Also we have our own sexual harassment team. So then Atma Jaya University have also their own sexual harassment teams for the special task force for this, and also special task force for this agenda. So then please feel free to report to this number if you have any problems or questions regarding on these security issues. So for the last one is lost and found. We have many reports for lost and found things here, like cell phones, tablets, even your badge, even your clothes. We find this. So then please everyone, if you find something or if you lose something, you can come to our logistic and secretariat room. This is next to the sport hall in the first floor. So then if you found something, just report to us. So, sorry, this is the last one. Everyone have to use your name tag here. If you lost these ones, you can ask to our registration staff right in front of these buildings. So yes, so this is from the safety and security teams. Thank you, and I will give this to the programs.
Thank you, Mela. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Really? How are you? Feeling great? Are you ready for the second day of the ACSC APF? Are you ready for the third day? Are you ready to go home, go back home? Okay, that's a bit disappointing if you're ready to go back home today. Welcome to the second day of the ASEAN People Forum 2023. One round of applause. We have distinguished panelist speakers invited from Bapak Joko. Welcome Pak Joko. From the ASEAN Socio-Culture. Ibu Kristi, welcome Ibu Kristi. Member of the Parliament. And the chairperson of APHR, Ibu Yuyun, the representative to the ICHR, Indonesia representative to the ICHR, welcome. And we're still waiting for the chairperson of Komnas HAM, National Human Rights Commission, Ibu Atnike. Macet ya? Macet is traffic jam. So, but she will be joining us shortly. The regional program committee will remind us about the recap of the day yesterday, and then after this we will hand over to the regional steering committee for further announcement. I will ask my colleague Putri Hanung to round of applause for Hanung and Putri.
Okay, thank you, my colleague Lini. So just to inform you that for those who didn't come yesterday, so we want to make some of the brief recap about what we did yesterday. So at the beginning, next slide, please. Okay, so for the opening remarks, so yesterday we have the representative from Atmajaya, Bapak Rektor, Dr. Agustinus Prasetyantoko, And then two of my colleagues here from HRWG, Daniel Awigra, and also Mbak Rena from Kalyana Mitra as a co-chair of Indonesia. Just want to make a short, regarding about the opening remarks yesterday, mentioning about the presentation of the objective and importance of the ACSC APF 2023 as a people movement to reclaim safe space and equality for restoring democracy in Southeast Asia. And then, hello Ibu Admika, welcome. Sorry, please have a seat. And then for the opening plenary, we have like 4 speakers, which is my colleague Lini moderate the session yesterday. And then some of you already know that yesterday we discussed about we hear the voices of those who are in the forefront in defending in human rights, which is those who defend democracy in Myanmar, the voice of mother of youth activists, showed that during the reformations in Semagiwan, the voices representing people with disability and human rights defender from Cambodia. And then reiterate the importance of putting the concern of victims, survivors, those facing challenges in defending human rights and democracy at the centrality of ASEAN. So that's for the opening plenary. And then we move to the plenary discussion 1. My colleague Hanung maybe will continue.
On the plenary discussion 1, we had a very extensive discussion with regards to the state of human rights and democracy in Indonesia, where we joined by 4 distinguished panelists: Isnur from YLBHI, Fatia Mauludianti, former coordinator of Contras, and then Juliana from representing Papua, and then Mbak Ika from Kalyana Mitra as well, where we hearing about the state of human rights and democracy in Indonesia, and also talking about what's happening and sort of like a prediction of what's going to happen during the upcoming election 2024 when it comes to the situation of human rights defenders and people from marginalized communities, but also to calling for sort of like election might not only become the end, but we also need to think creatively what's going to happen like after the election, what it will bring to the landscape of civic space in Indonesia as well. And as you might have known, Indonesia also the biggest democracy in ASEAN, and how it will impact ASEAN as well. And then also for another excerpt of the discussion is for young generation movement. There are new young communities that creates community to raise their voice for sharing awareness. So young generation should take the part to lead the new movement later on, and also the importance of putting together different representations to collectively discuss and move forward defending human rights and democracy in Indonesia. And then next slide for the plenary 2, we have the discussions on the quite new concept to all of us as well on the alternative regionalism, where our 4 distinguished panelists discuss about the importance of hearing each other and talk to each other to build solidarity, not one direction, but having a meaningful conversation, using this platform to build meaningful and long-lasting relationship to build solidarity, and also to discuss about the people-to-people bottom-up model that ensure every element within the society, including the marginalized ones, are actively part of the decision-making process in the ASEAN level as well, and also challenging the status quo, as ASEAN is not only the ASEAN leaders, lawmakers, but also ASEAN as people, as us here also, and then public in general as well is also ASEAN. Next slide will be about the parallel workshop breakout. Maybe Putri wants to take over?
Thank you. Okay, for yesterday, so started yesterday afternoon, we have like the parallel workshop for the main event and also the side event. Yesterday we have like 6 classrooms for main event workshop from the convergence space 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we have like 3 classrooms for the side event. Very interesting. I joined like one of the side event yesterday about this disability. It's very, very interesting to hear, but I believe all of you here also yesterday joined several classroom. So perhaps we can like hear a little bit if we have time. Yeah.
Still have, we're going to start the plenary discussion tree with the ASEAN representative joining us here. Well, not all ASEAN representative. We have National Human Rights Commission. We have Member of Parliament here. Before that, this is very important to hear from our participants who organize and participate the 6 workshop of yesterday after the 3 plenary discussion and then 3 side event. So we're going to call, okay, maybe one representative from the workshop under Convergence Space, Human Rights and Vulnerable Group. Anyone? Or any other Convergence Space if you want to share. I heard that Convergence Space 3 and Convergence Space 5, it was full pack. No more chairs. Everyone standing. So we would love to hear what was really happening yesterday. Like why we need to pull off all the chairs from outside inside because it was really full pack. If we can hear someone from the workshop. If not, we're going to move to the workshop organized in the side event. Putri, what do we have in the side event? Okay, here we go. Ibu Eri.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to report in the name of the Convergence Spaces 5 is talking
How
about...
many participants do you have?
I can't count. We need more add the chairs. Almost there, we are sitting as well on
Round
the floor.
of applause.
And all of them are sitting until the end. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and it's quite colorful because why? We are talking about the basic needs of ours. This is about social protections and maternality. So there is a research here in the ASEAN countries on how is actually the social protections has been provided and what should the government, the nation, the CSO as well the private sector do to improve the social protections in ASEAN countries. So it's quite close to our daily life, maternity, care economy and so on. Therefore, it's quite full and interestingly, it's attended as well by men. Because we are talking the maternity that a lot of good ideas come from them. So I appreciate these workshops. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Eri. Thank you so much. Maybe we can hear one from side
Is there
event.
like someone who want to voluntarily share about what yesterday side event?
At the side event.
Yeah, there will be like yesterday we have like 3 classrooms for the side event. Whether someone wants to voluntarily share about not only the organizer but also people who attend the side event yesterday. Come on. Whether, okay.
Anyway.
Piladawan.
Yeah, Piladawan, the side event. Are you organizing the side event, Piladawan? Come, joining us. Piladawan from the...
I organize side event for the World Social Forum 2024, going to happen in Nepal, Kathmandu, February. So we organize this World Social Forum side event for people to getting more understanding what the people of ASEAN people, we call it the world is possible. So we like to share to you that there's a very tremendous preparation that is going on for the World Social Forum. It's an event similar to what you are having here now, ASEAN People Forum. But it will be the more wider context that will include people from the world to participate. We expect to have about 50,000 people in Kathmandu So we are telling and we try to disseminate information in front. So please join next year, February, Kathmandu. Thank you.
Thank you, Piladawan. Thank you so much. Thank you for the sharing. Mbak Yuyun, Ibu Kristi, Pak Joko, Bu Atnike, just to inform you that in total, the registered participants, 600 to 700. Yesterday, attended participants around 650 participants. There were 6 workshops and 3 side events. And today there will be more workshop and more side event for throughout the days, throughout the conference. 30 workshop under 6 convergence space. So imagine how many ideas coming from the grassroots to advance the democracy, human rights, and safe space in ASEAN. I think, of course, we will. Abis ini kali ya, abis ini kali ya. That's all from the regional program committee. We would like to call on the regional steering committee representative to deliver some important information regarding the convergence space. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good morning. I can see the energy from the room. So just want to remind again, because we will have more workshop today, as a representative from the Regional Steering Committee, just want to remind all the workshop organizers, because you already have the workshop format report. Make sure that each of the workshop have the reporter. And also make sure that you end of your workshop, fill in the workshop format report and then submit it to the co-convener and the convener of the convergence space. And the convener and co-convener, please work, cooperate with the drafting committee. And drafting committee, please assign at least one person in each of the convergence space to be there to collect the report. If you want your voice and your comments be incorporated in the drafting statement for tomorrow, make sure that you submit the report. You cannot complain that why your word, your result cannot be reflected in the statement if you don't submit your report. So make sure that each of the workshop organizers submit your report, and then the co-convener and the convener of the convergence space collect that and then work with the drafting committee to make sure that all the outcomes document from each of the workshops can be incorporated under one convergence space, and each of the convergence space can submit it to the drafting committee. Just to let you know, the drafting committee tonight, they will not sleep because they need to work all of your comments. Sorry for all the drafting committee members, but this is the hard work, but also a very meaningful work also. Can you join me to give a round of applause to the drafting committee? Give them the energy ahead of time. So, then one last announcement. All the workshop organizers, you need to pay the money, okay? For the side event too. They will have the table outside, please pay the money for that, because the money is not a problem, but you need to make sure that we contribute, right? Okay, let's be accountable. So that's all for the comment, but again, just want to plug one more about safety and security protocol. You can do a live stream, but only coming from the official page of the ACSC APF. You cannot live stream within your own individual or personal accounts. Make sure that we live stream from the official page. If you want to take a photo or video of anyone, make sure that you ask for the consent. And for those who don't want to make your photo to be visible, you need to have to put the sticker on that. And make sure that your sticker is visible. Don't put your sticker over here, okay? No one can find it. If possible, just put it on your face if you really want to make it visible. We will scan the barcode if anything happening in this room, especially if any threat, any harassment, arrested or anything, just scan the barcode and reach out to us. Make sure that you recognize this red tape. This red tape is for the organizing committee. Whether it's a program committee, whether it's steering committee, drafting committee, or safety and security committee, and also the media committee. People with the red tape will assist you and giving you support as we can. That's all from me, and enjoy the next most important conference and also plenary. Thank you.
Distinguished participants, we have now arrived to the plenary discussion 3, where we will be discussing the theme People's Forum with ASEAN representatives with the speakers.
The first speaker is Mr. Joko Kusnanto Anggoro. Mr. Joko Kusnanto Anggoro is the Senior Advisor to the Coordinating Ministry for Human Development and Culture for International Cooperation and SOCA, or Senior Officials Committee for the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community Chair.
The second speaker, we have Ibu Yuyun Wahyuningrum, the Indonesia representative to the AICHR. Ibu Yuyun Wahyuningrum is a representative of Indonesia on ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, also a PhD researcher on International Institute of Social Studies, or ISS, of Erasmus University Rotterdam, and Senior Advisor ASEAN and Human Rights. The third speaker, we have Ibu Mercy Christy Barens from APHR. Ibu Mercy Christy Barens is the newest and most current APHR chairperson who has been appointed this year, and she's also a member of the House of Representatives in Indonesia for the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggles, or PDI Perjuangan, since 2014. Ibu Mercy has been very active and keen when it comes to the climate change issue, as shown through her work in the Parliament, where she chairs the Green Economy Caucus, as well as internationally through her works in the Alliance of Parliament Coal for Fossil-Free Future, the Global Alliance for Green New Deal, and Air Quality Asia.
The fourth speaker is Dr. Annika Nova Sigiro from Komnas HAM. Dr. Annika Nova Sigiro is the current chairwoman of the National Commission on Human Rights, or Komnas HAM. Dr. Annika is mostly known as an academic and human rights activist. She previously held a position as an executive director at Jurnal Perempuan from October 2017 to September 2021, and the chief editor for Jurnal Perempuan from 2019 to 2021. Dr. Annika is also a researcher for developing the Human Rights Index at the Ministry of Law and Human Rights for the Republic of Indonesia in 2022. Without any further ado, I would like to pass the floor to the moderator. Everyone, please welcome Cornelius Damar Hanung.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me go to the stage first. May I also invite our distinguished panelists, Pak Joko, Ibu Mercy, Ibu Yuyun, and Ibu Adnika to join me on the stage. And give a round of applause. Boleh. Jadi Pak Joko, Mbak Yuyun, Ibu Mercy, Ibu Adnika. So we are very much humbled to be joined by a very distinguished panelist here in a Saturday morning. Usually we have time for break for family, but the solidarity in the room, the energy is still high, coming together to discuss about what will be the future of ASEAN and how we can build more solidarity. And then yesterday we've discussed about how to build a people-to-people solidarity, right? But at the same time, we also need to aware that we, as the people of ASEAN, also part of the bigger ASEAN ecosystem, right? So there's also part of the ASEAN who's part of the government, and then those who are working at the regional human rights mechanisms, national human rights mechanisms, and then members of parliament. Those are the part of institutions, part of ecosystem that needs to be synchronized, needs to be put together into dialogue to go to the same vision in realizing as what we call the safe space and equality in Southeast Asia and in ASEAN. So this is the opportunity as well under the ACSC APF to have more dialogue, to hear different perspectives from the different part of the ASEAN ecosystem as well. So without further ado, but perhaps I would like to remind the speakers that each will be given 10 minutes to give your talking points. Then we will open it for further discussions. I would like to encourage all of you to be actively participate, ask questions to our distinguished panelists here so that this can be a two-side conversations and a very meaningful one as well. Oh, I think I forgot to introduce myself as well. My name is Hanung. I am Program Manager of East Asia and ASEAN of Forum Asia and part of the Regional Program Committee representing Indonesia. So without further ado, I would like to give the first opportunity to Professor Joko Kusnanto Anggoro, Senior Advisor to the Coordinating Minister of Human Development and Culture on International Relation Affairs, and also Chair of the Senior Committee for the ASEAN Sociocultural Community. But without further ado, I will give the space to you.
Thank you, Hanung. A very good morning to everyone. And thank you for inviting me to have a plenary session with old friend, Yuyun Wahyuningrum, lalu Ibu Mercy Christy Baron, dan Adnika. Rare opportunity to me. And of course, we are looking at the development until today, especially with the involvement of a civil society organization, non-government group, and so on. Basically, it's all people which already included within the discussion and issues of the Asian. It is very interesting. It is a long journey. More than 30 years ago, while I was with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, I actually joining some people to set up this kind of thing. Then called by a Asian People's Forum, Asian People Associations. Long-time friend of mine, including Anwar Ibrahim, which happened to be a Prime Minister of Malaysia right now, and Omar Cruz of the Philippines, and Professor Carolina Hernandez of the Institute for Strategic and Defense Studies, if I remember correctly, and the University of Philippines, and Rohana Mahmud from the Institute for Strategic International Studies at the Malaysia, Panitan Watayanayagon in Thailand, and all many people. So it is very interesting to have you all here. Many progress has taken place, and despite maybe we can discuss about everything, how far we can go, what kind of problem actually we're still facing in future and this kind of stuff. Yes, at least the inclusions of people into Asian process is of course the thing that we have to say, Alhamdulillah in Indonesia, I get lost. So, everything is also new for me. First, for example, I don't think that most people recognize me as with name of Joko. I think some people recognize me as Kusnanto Anggoro, and I used to be someone who is actually watching democracy and reforming Indonesian military. I get involved actually to military reform in Thailand and also in Myanmar, which is, I don't think I succeed did military reform, because in fact, even in Myanmar and Thailand has been under military junta for a couple of times, and they're creating a lot of problems, especially from democratization perspective, as well as from the consequences that might entail on the human rights issues. But that is me. used to be getting involved in politics and security affairs. And this only during the last couple of months, actually, I getting involved in social and cultural affairs. I'm not really realized how far, actually, human rights issue can be fitting in within the socio-cultural context. Though, of course, a socio-cultural perspective is very important on that thing. Let me make some note on the human rights issues. My assistant actually prepared a lot on the speech that I should give. Basically, it's about what might be we could possibly expect during the last couple of years, including during Indonesian chairmanship. Well, it's difficult sometimes to say chairmanship because many people criticize me, and to say chairpersonship, it is also a cultural gap between me and you, I guess, because in my understanding, the phrase man in chairman was basically represent human, not man, actually. So, but it's also cultural shift of me that I have to face. Okay, during ASEAN chairpersonship, actually it's very productive. We prepare actually to declare about 8 statements and declarations, plus 23 other documents to be noted on the summit. This clean slate, it's already prepared, and everything is okay. I think the Asian SOCA, especially in the socio-cultural affair, has been very productive this year, though I'm not quite sure actually how this could enhance how we could be more touched on the issues of human rights, because actually we are facing very serious challenges. First, everywhere on the globe, the notions stage development about democracies is actually changing. Digital issues is becoming into question now. In the past, we are facing under the agenda of democratization, especially because we confront the violent by state actions, which concrete views in some of like the violence, casualties, this kind of stuff. In future, we might be talking about digital authoritarianism. And that would be a serious challenge, because I'm not quite sure that international laws actually already accommodated the problem on the digital violence, for example, because some issues that have been discussed. That is only one thing, issue that we could possibly must be aware of. Second is, despite the very fact that the government of ASEAN member states becoming more accommodative to the inclusions of people, but of course there is still some problem. I would call this one something like a cultural gap between state and society, which is still very serious, because I do know actually that Southeast Asian social and cultural landmark might not be actually suitable for liberal democracies as we know it. While at the same time, democracy index or even human rights index and this kind of stuff is actually defined from liberal perspective. So there is still a gap. I don't know how to make a bridge with that one. I always imagine myself, for example, that someday, somehow, ASEAN would have its own index on human rights. So I'm very glad that Atnika is actually preparing about the human rights index and so on and so forth. My question would likely be what kind of perspective actually when making or creating this kind of index. This is important because this is the issues. When we are looking at human rights, basically we are actually seeing from the perspective of liberal democracies of the West, with focusing on individualism and this kind of stuff. In some Southeast Asian countries, there is a gap, especially because government perspective does not really focus on the human right, but perhaps it would be more adequate if we are call it as human dignity. There are some confusion here. I don't know whether this is actually confusion or just simply overlapping or unclarity of idea. But the point is, there would remain a gap or different perspective between the government of the ASEAN member state with with people, activists, civil society organization, and so on and so forth. It does not actually mean that the government is not quite responding to people's demand, but they have a different vocabulary. If you are looking at the program that we have in ASEAN for the next 25 years, for example, or development about what the statement and declaration that might be issued in the 5th and 7th of September, there may be a lot of things that actually relate in many ways with what so-called sectoral human rights issues, protection of migrant workers, protection of gender and women, and so on and so forth. It would be difficult actually to directly see how this kind of thing relate with the index of human rights, for example, by human rights group, by Amnesty International, and so on and so forth. Well, of course, it depends also to the quantitative and methodology that we are actually acquiring it. So, we still confronting a serious challenge from the future, either because of the transformation of the society on the one hand and the political system that might be confronting it. And two, is because of the emerging new issues that cannot be tackled similarly with the thing of the past when we're confronting the problem of human rights. And third, of course, human rights institutionalization in ASEAN has been relatively progressive, though I'm not quite sure actually how effective actually ASEAN Intergovernmental Committee on Human Rights and so on and so forth, because basically it was a consultative body, and I myself thinking that people like Ibu Christie and Wayne Ingram actually more have power and authority within that kind of stuff. But we can discuss this one. I'm not quite sure if all those things is already on the agenda during the next 25 years. If we are looking at on the ASEAN vision on post 2025 and so on, it is actually not quite on the center point. However, one must remember that it is a good if everything is on the declaration, but it's not quite bad as well if nothing in there, because meaning that you will be having an opportunity to discuss that more. So the very essence of our discussion in future between civil society and say ASEAN member states and the government would like be as long as you can communicate one to the others, it will be good. In the past, communication is very difficult between civil society and the government. And during the last 10 years or so, especially after the creation of summit within ASEAN, everything has becoming more smooth and this kind of stuff. Dialogue, the willingness to talk together, and willingness to find a common point and convergence and so on is a good starting point. I'm quite sure, actually, that in the next, say, 10 years, and the relationship between the civil society and government in ASEAN would likely become better than it has been. But both sides actually need to respond adaptively and need to open communication between the two in a creative environment. I think that's the only thing I would like to say. We can also discuss a lot of issues especially, but I think for now, that's the thing I would like to expose. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Pak Joko. It's fine, right? Pak Kus, for speaking about that we need to factor in the transformation of society and political systems over the past years and then in the future as well. And there's a new emerging issues that needs to be tackled in a different way, which is also we need to put it in the lens when we see the human rights institutionalization in ASEAN with its progress and challenges as well. And then, of course, the importance to put all of these in the ASEAN post-2025 vision and how we, as a people of ASEAN, can be adaptive together to overcome these challenges as well. And I think we can discuss further about that And speaking about the institutionalization of human rights in ASEAN, I think our next distinguished speaker will be the best person to speak about this. Her Excellency Yuyun Wahyuningrum is the Indonesia representative to the ICHR for 2022 to 2024. And she was also the Indonesian representative to ICHR for the period of 2019 to 2021. So this is her second term. And she's also currently doing her PhD in the International Institute of Social Science of Erasmus University of Rotterdam. So Ibu Yuyun, I would like to give the time to you to discuss about how ICHR can also contribute on the creation of enabling environment for the people ASEAN to speak about human rights.
Thank you very much, Hanung. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So the topic given to me, I've prepared my presentation to make my presentation rather structured. The topic is about enabling environment on human rights in ASEAN. But first, I would like to thank the organizer for having me here to speak to you today. So I've been thinking what kind of information, what kind of presentation I would like to present today, and I assume that many of you may have known already about ICHR, so I'm not going to explain what is the role, what is the mandates, but focus more on enabling environment and what kind of role ICHR has done or not done in relation to ensuring the region can have a safe enabling environment for human rights. But first, to be able to arrive at the enabling and safe environment, we need to have a robust legal framework at the regional level, which we do not have. We have a number of regulation, legal framework, declaration, instruments that not necessarily at par at the international law standard. Some are, but not some are not. Especially under political security, social cultural perform better in terms of complying with the international standards, but not in political security pillar, which ICHR is under. ICHR is overarching body. It can go all communities, but structurally it is under political security. There are a lot of control, there are a lot of scrutiny in political security, but anyway, we continue moving forward. If you look at the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, there are a number of criticism over the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, but if you look at the Phnom Penh statement, there is a statement saying that the implementation of this declaration should be complied with the international standards. So you can see within ASEAN, ASEAN member states continue to have a lot of debate, resistant responses different from one to another. That's ASEAN, and it is, I think it is wrongly to think that ASEAN is only one, as ASEAN would like to perform it is, because basically inside ASEAN there are so many diversity of member states in terms of understanding, respect, acceptance on human rights. So we are not in a perfect situation or condition, but no perfect situation. So that is why we have to do whatever we can. We have to push whatever we should within the context which is not perfect, less than perfect, that we have in the region. And it's the dynamic is very quick from time to time. So we cannot just stand still or accept as it is. We have to continue to use whatever we have to arrive at our goal. So first, just reality check. Enabling human rights environment require a robust regional framework, which we don't have, and require state compliant to international human rights law, which we do not have. It's very different from one state to another member of ASEAN. but also require changing attitude and changing behavior. As we can see in the last 10 years, the changing is not only to the better, but also to backwards. So it's up and down all the time. So these are the situation that we are facing, not only as civil society, but also as intergovernmental institutions. And mechanism for grievance. So whenever something happens, people need to be able to go to a place, to an institution, to a center to convey their grievances. Unfortunately, it is not equally exists in all member states. Some member states have a lot. I cannot speak on other countries, but I can speak as Indonesia. Indonesia has Komnas HAM, a lot of national human rights institutions, ombudsmans also open for grievances. Even the government of law and human rights open Yankomas with non-judicial responses. But not all ASEAN member states provide this kind of grievances. Public participation is very, very crucial. But we can see, as you also mentioned, the shrinking space from time to time in this region. Not only in this region, I think all over the world, state becoming more conservative. But if you look at in this region, it's also unequal on public participation from one to another. So there are so many parameters on how we can achieve the enabling and safe environment for human rights. This is only some of the parameters, but within these limited parameters, we are not perfect. Yeah. So we are in that level at the moment. So what ICHR, so then now I would like to go into the main topic, answering what ICHR has done or not done. First, we have the TOR, Term of Reference of ICHR, which is limited. We have also ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, and we use this ASEAN Human Rights Declaration to talk to ASEAN member states, to talk to ASEAN sectoral bodies, and also to use it as a basis to engage with civil society organization and people. Not only because people usually unstructured group, but civil society is more structured and well-organized group. So we try to put all together and then use it as a framework for cooperation. Importance of mainstreaming human rights. At the moment, mainstreaming of human rights, that the task given to ICHR is for ASEAN sectoral bodies. So we do not have the hand to ask member states to mainstream human rights in their policies, but we have the assignment to ask ASEAN sectoral bodies to mainstream human rights. Therefore, we participated in their activities, developing the work plan, declaration, and so on and so forth, to be able to include human rights and the respect of human rights into their instruments. And ICHR also has advisory role that we have been using whenever we receive requests from ASEAN sectoral bodies on inputs. We provide inputs. Sometimes the task is becoming very, very mundane, and we cannot address all of them. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier in relation to the promotion of the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, ICHR has no role to implement. It has role to promote the implementation of ASEAN Human Rights Declaration and ASEAN instruments. So that's what the TOR assigned us in terms of ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. From 40 articles included in ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, 12 articles have not been able to be promoted in the last 10 years in terms of providing a space to discuss further and to provide understanding on the how to implement certain articles in ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. So you can see here the list of rights that we have not been able to address. Number one is Article 4. Article 4 has a lot of groups' rights, such as right of women, right of children, right of person with disabilities, right of elder person, and other vulnerable and marginalized groups. But only elder groups, the right of elder person that we haven't been able to address or to discuss further. So the strength of ICHR as a regional organization of human rights is that when ICHR pick up the issue, it become a regional human rights. So we define regional human rights. So that is why it is very important for ICHR to take all the rights to be discussed at the regional level, to be adopted as, or to be perceived as regional concerns. In social welfare, OSOM SWD, Senior Official Meeting on Welfare and Development, they have been an extensive research and policies in relation to elder person. But the approach is quite from the perspective of welfare, from the perspective of development, is not from the perspective of human rights. So it is therefore ICHR should contribute to the discussion from the perspective of human rights. So this is only ICHR, yeah, but number of rights already implemented by other sectoral bodies, especially from social cultural. Last week we just organized the second ASEAN Community Council Dialogue on Human Rights. We asked each sectoral bodies which rights that fit to their mandate. So it's very interesting that ACDM, ATSOM is on security. ASEAN, what is the Defense and Security Senior Official Meeting. When they screen all rights under the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, they only can relate themselves into one right, which is right to peace, right to enjoy peace. So this is very interesting to see how sectoral bodies relate themselves into human rights within their understanding. So we didn't talk about right or wrong, but we would like to know that sectoral bodies have responsibility to implement and promote human rights as mentioned in ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. So that's only one example on how sectoral bodies relate themselves, relate their work into human rights. And I also mentioned some of the framework here that link to human rights, such as counter-violent extremism. We managed to include human rights as part of the Bali Work Plan. Also on Bohol Work Plan 2.0, the first pillar of the work plan was on human rights, which is not exist in Bohol Work Plan 1, version 1. So we try to engage with sectoral bodies to be able to mainstream human rights, because once it is mentioned in their instruments, it will be detailed into action to be in line with the pillars, or with the principles. So as of now, Pak Kus mentioned about the importance of dialogue in ASEAN. As of now, ICHR has established dialogue with sectoral bodies, I mentioned earlier. Second, dialogue with member states. We call it as ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. For Indonesia, we call it as mini UPR, because basically we follow and we copy the process of UPR. But we do not have a troika, because we only 10 countries, and we do not have the adoption of recommendation mechanism. But we ask member states voluntarily to present their human rights situation, challenges, opportunities, and possible cooperation. Then we talk, and then we usually ICHR representative ask question about certain situation in the country, and then no one in member states accuse us as violating the non-interference principle. So dialogue is a platform in which we can provide a safe space for member states to talk. Very often we also ask the law on in many countries called NPO, CSO. There are so many terms. All right. And then next slide. We also promote ASEAN Human Rights Declaration as a basis of cooperation to civil society. We just had, in the past, civil society was engaged in workshops as speakers, and also there was two specific workshops engaging with civil society, I'm not mistaken, in Bangkok as well as in Chiang Rai, and then in Jakarta. But now we include civil society organization engagement in the official meeting of ICHR. And we just met with children for ICHR to be more sensitive, to engage with young people and children. And we engage in dialogue with other dialogue partners such as EU, Australia, and others. For ICHR not to live in their own bubble. So we need to expand our engagement. At the moment, I think I need to mention this. At the moment, we are developing the ASEAN framework on environmental rights, in which the drafting group consists of civil society organization, young people, as well as experts from the UN. My last slide, answering the second question given to me on further coordination and collaboration. Our approach, I'm not going to identify what kind of cooperation and collaboration. I think it can get case by case. But the principle and approaches that we have now is complementarities. The regional organization's role is to complement the national system and to complement the international system. So we should not overlap our roles and approaches. And then we like to synergize and align to promote and protect human rights together with the existing approach of member states as well as sectoral bodies, and to gradually incorporate human rights policy in agreements. We have not been able to enter the trade agreement discussion. It's very difficult to engage with the economic community at the moment, but we have been hearing and receiving some of good response from economic community. Very limited, but perhaps that limited access can be used for us to engage more on human rights in trade agreement discussion. Member states, sectoral bodies expected ICHR to come up with guidelines and manual and so on and so forth. And then we have to use the whole community approach in our cooperation. Challenges remain that we are very different from one to another, not only in ASEAN member states, but also sectoral bodies. But that's something that should be accepted, given. We cannot stop just because we are different. And then cultural sensitivity on local context whenever we talk about human rights, lack of civil society engagement at the national level, and also not all sectoral bodies engage with civil society. That's also contribute to some of the challenges. And increasing number of traditional and non-traditional threats. This is given, but the way member states respond to these challenges very often annoying from the perspective of human rights. But this is something that we need to recognize as challenges, and from this, then we can identify what possible strategies to engage with sectoral bodies. So for civil society, ICHR welcome to engage with civil society more. I still have 1 year and a half until 2024. So that's what the timeline that I can promise you. Beyond that, then it's up to the next representative. I thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause. And as Ibu Yuen mentioned, there are lots of areas that can be explored when leveraging the role of ICHR to complement the protection at the national and the international level as well. And it's up to us, for civil society, to be creatively maneuver and then to discuss as well, to discuss with the ICHR on what we can do together later on. So thank you so much, Ibu Yuen, for the points. We can come back to that later during the Q&A. And without further ado, I would like to again reintroduce the next speaker, Honorable Ibu Mercy Christie Barons, the chairperson of the ASEAN Parliamentarian for Human Rights and Member of Parliament of Indonesia. Ibu Mercy is a member of the House of Representatives in Indonesia for the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, or PDIP, since 2014, and have been involving in various progressive issues, including the Green Economy Caucus, and Ibu Mercy is also a very good allies of Indonesian civil society when we talk about the issues of Myanmar, for example. So again, thank you very much, Ibu, for coming, and without further ado, I would like to give time and space to you.
Thank you very Yeah. Thank you very much for Hanung. Yeah, give big applause for Hanung. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, already facilitated the panels. Very good morning for all the participants, especially for all the panelists here, and particularly for all committees to make us here. And I'm very happy to be here because I think that we are Asian community. So this is very, very important event for us to think, evaluate, take action, and raise one voice for what we think to become much better for Asian in the future. Let me begin to introduce a bit about APHR, Asian Parliamentarian for Human Rights. Because of our name, many people think that we are part of the Asian Secretariat, but in fact, we are independent organization of network of current and former parliamentarians throughout Southeast Asian, and we are as a member of APHR who are committed work for human rights issue and democracy across the Southeast Asian region. So APHR right now working in several key topics, including democracy and fundamental freedom, freedom of religion or belief, climate change and human rights, as well as separate one on Myanmar due to the ongoing crisis until now. The theme for Indonesian chairmanship of ASEAN this year is Asian Matter. So as a member of parliament, I do believe, I do know that many people sometimes feel think minus about the member of parliament, sometimes very bad perspective about the MPs. But actually, I can say that many of us until now still work hand in hand with the other organizations, civil movement for democracy, for the poor people, and for the peace throughout the Asian regions. So I can say from the APHR perspective that the theme from Indonesian chairmanship of ASEAN this year is Asian Matter. We at APHR very much believe and want this to be true actually. However, we are deeply concerned that Asian silence, and particularly Indonesian silence as chair on key human rights issues affecting the region, threaten to make Asian less and less relevant. Many critical thinking and critical awareness raised in many events about the positioning of Indonesian as a chair, as a chair of ASEAN until September, and our approach to tackling the human rights issue using silent or soft diplomacy. Actually, we have several meetings with Ibu Retno, and we do hope that Indonesian position can take a strong role to give the right position and the right direction on behalf of the human rights issue throughout the Asian, not for Myanmar, for Cambodia, Vietnam, Thai, Indonesia as well, and the other countries. And I do know that many of us knew about the situation in Myanmar until now. More than 1,000 people now as IDPs, refugee, internally Myanmar and outside. At the border side, Thai and Myanmar, India and Myanmar, and in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. And some of them went to the several Asian countries, like in Indonesia, in Aceh, in Makassar, and other countries like Malaysia and others. So for this situation, there is a big problem related with the non-principle in our Asian Charter. There is a principle named non-interference principle. This is the big barrier, the big problem for all of us, especially for the Asian leader to take the strong sanction, to take the strong action about the human rights issue, because there is no other instruments under the non-interference principle to make it happen in action, to take action accurately and to be happen. So all the problems related to the atrocity, not only in Myanmar but in Cambodia and other countries in Asia, can be solved directly. And as a people of ASEAN community, we feel that ASEAN as a community exists for all the problem of ASEAN, not only for human rights issue, economic issue, environmental issue, and other issues. So this is the biggest problem related with non-interference principle in ASEAN Charter, and we already submit our what we call it recommendation and resolution of APHR to Ibu Retno, the Foreign Minister of Indonesia, on behalf of Asian leader now. And I think not only APHR but other organizations work for human rights, Ibu Yuyun and others, Mbak Atnike, maybe already talk many things about the positioning of the charter, especially to tackling the human rights issue, what we call it, prudently like that. So for that situation, I can say that APHR already developed and run our several priority program to tackling the human rights issues. First, until now, we work for Myanmar as a special program, and we already established a report and already submit to international organization, UN bodies, Asian bodies, all countries of Asians, all the positions of lawmakers about the IPI, International Parliamentarian Inquiry on Myanmar. And there is a problem related with that. First, it's related with the many atrocities already done by, until now, still running until now by the junta military on mainline. And the biggest one now is airstrikes, bombs for the Myanmar people now, and many of them to become the victims, murdered or killed, and become refugees until now. So we do hope that for this situation, we do hope that the junta military stop the atrocity, stop the air strikes, stop the bomb in many villages, especially for the poor people and many ethnic groups in Myanmar. The second one is about the international aid. International aid mechanism for the Myanmar issues. I can say that many problems there, because many international aids come from the UN bodies, come from the many international organizations, and they use very strictly requirements. very strictly requirements. Some of them even bring all the 8 international aim to the junta militaire. I can say that when they bring this aid to the junta militaire use all the aids like a weapon, like an arm to suppress all the people of Myanmar, to acknowledge them as an official government there. So for this situation, we already sent all our reports on IPI reports, especially to the UN bodies, Asian bodies. They are a center to be more flexible, because this is humanitarian situation, humanitarian crisis. We have to use humanitarian crisis at the crisis instrumental and mechanism. Not like business as usual, we bring all the international aid for the people like there is no war, something like that. So this is the second one related with the how to make more flexible to use the instrument and mechanism and requirements to distribute all the international aid and not use junta militaire on mainline to distribute all. Much better, use all the civil society of the Myanmar or at Thai border or India border and in Cox's Bazar to directly distribute, because they know clearly the coordinator, the people, refugee, and what they needs, basic needs, etc. The second one, we also increased the positioning about the MPs. MPs from the Aung San Suu Kyi, party, until now almost more than 80 MPs until now in jail. In Myanmar, they brought by the junta militaire, and we didn't know what happened in the jail, because when we go to the border area, we talk with many organizations. There are many atrocities in the jail, not for MPs, but also for women, also for youth, and for the other freedom and democratic defenders. So we have to raise the same voice, to work together and voice together to first, on mainline have to release directly all MPs, because they already elected officially by all Myanmar people. So what we call it, problems to make them bring to the jail? They have no sin. People elected them. So this is the biggest problem, and we do hope that as a member of parliament in APHR, we work for the other MPs now at risk in jail, get many atrocities and oppressive by the authoritarian governments among the Asian, Myanmar, Cambodia, and others. The fourth one related with the Myanmar is related with about the Asian as organizations. Actually, in September, Indonesian chairmanship have to be hand over to Laos. And as we know that all the Mekong rivers, because have a strong relationship with the China, so it's very problems there, very problems. We don't know what will be happen in the future about our situation of democratic and human rights issue in ASEAN. So this is the event is very important and critical movement and voice for us to bring the resolution for the next chairmanship. What will be done to tackling the all the human rights issues in all sectors in Asian regions. The next point is regarding the Cambodia. We work also for the Cambodia alongside with Myanmar. And as we know that the country recently held election in July. And yeah, I put election in quotation mark because of APHR's views, which is the same as many other human rights organizations such as Human Rights Watch and UNFREL, is that the so-called elections were not at all free and fair, especially since the main opposition party was banned from participating and its members and supporters were harassed and threatened. It's very problem. Not in Cambodia, not in Cambodia. In Thai, in Philippines, some of the member of parliament, some of the candidates of the member of parliaments whatsoever get threatened by the junta military, by the authoritarian government. Then this is our problem. So I agree with the other panelists. This is the setback situation of democracy among the Asian recently. So how to make it move forward to increase the critical awareness and critical thinking to reshape again our human rights movement and democracy among the Asian region. So this is very, very important. We work hard for the Cambodia, and in Philippines, one member of parliament, Senator Laila De Lima, Laila De Lima until now in jail, and the other candidate or 5 presidents they bring to the court, etc. And Charles Santiago, our former chair of Asian parliamentarian, also faced the trial of court because of the different spectrum of the politics. I think this is my point of view related with the Asian situation in Asian country. We work many program, and now we set up and develop research for federalism states to get the perceived reality and perspective from the bottom line of the people of Myanmar at the border area, so they can think about the future of the Myanmar. And I do believe that when we work hand in hand, heart to heart, we can do much better. No revolution among the Asian country to support the human rights issue and the true democracy without work together in militant, from the bottom of our heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Mercy, for providing the importance of the work of MP on pushing for member states in ASEAN to set the right direction for human rights, but also given the challenges that MPs has faced, because many of the positions of MPs in different countries are facing judicial harassments and other challenges as well. So thank you very much, Ibu. Our next speaker, without further ado, is Dr. Adnika Nova Sigiro. She is the chair of Komnas HAM, or Komisi Hak Asasi Manusia Indonesia, the Indonesia National Human Rights Institution for the period of 2022 to 2027. And previously, she was the executive director for Yayasan Jurnal Perempuan, like Indonesian Feminist Scholars Journal, and also former ASEAN Advocacy Program Manager for Forum Asia. She holds a PhD in Social Welfare from the Faculty of Social and Political Science of University of Indonesia, and currently also a lecturer at the University of Paramadina. Without further ado, Ibu Adnika, I will give the time to you. Please give a round of applause.
Terima kasih, Mas Hanung. Selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Rahayu, Minglaba, Bondia, Sawadika, Mabuhay. Good morning to all of us, and I'm sorry that I missed some of the ASEAN countries, greetings. Distinguished speakers, Bapak Kusnanto Anggoro, Ibu Yuyun Wahyuningrum, Ibu Mercy Barens, all are experts and experienceful people on international politics and human rights in ASEAN region. And Mr. Hanung, my former colleague in civil society, he forgot to mention that I was part of this forum since 2010. I was part of the committee, drafting committee, steering committee, program committee, but since then, now I'm here as a member of National Human Rights Institution in Indonesia, known as Komnas HAM. I was invited very recent, so I cannot prepare any PowerPoint presentation, but I hope that my sharing this morning could give some contribution to the process made by civil society in ASEAN region, which I know from the previous experience was never easy. There are two questions that were given to me. The first is, how is the role of National Human Rights Institution in the creation of enabling environment for the people of ASEAN to obtain full enjoyment of human rights? And the second, as there are only 6 ASEAN countries have national human rights institutions, how these national human rights institutions can also address the situation of human rights in the region, particularly those with transnational elements. We are all here because we realize that no country in this world and also in this region of Southeast Asia can live in isolation anymore. We have interconnected situation, either economically, politically, culturally, geographically, and many more. Some situations are more serious than others, such as the oppression in Myanmar and the Rohingya refugee who's fled to many countries in the region. There is trafficking of persons, environmental destructions, and many other problems that we, all the people in ASEAN region, must face. So I respect and appreciate the efforts made by civil society in this region to keep reminding the member state of ASEAN that ASEAN exists to serve its people. So I will stop talking like I'm giving a speech. That would be my opening. So national human rights institutions, as Komnas HAM, we call it in short NHRIs, we work at national level, so different from the ICHR. We work to address situation within the territory of a country like Indonesia. We might assume that we only deal with problems experienced by the citizen of this country. But looking at the recent years, Komnas HAM, for example, and I think other NHRIs in ASEAN region, we have also to address situation of non-citizen in the country. For Komnas HAM, for example, we receive visits from friends from Myanmar. We receive communication from the UNHCR who work on refugee situation, on situation concerning Rohingya refugees who are now situated in this country. Not only we have to work on non-citizen in this country, organizations like Komnas HAM, we have also to work on Indonesian citizens who work in other countries in ASEAN, who become migrant workers in Malaysia, who become migrant workers in Singapore and other countries. So these are some of the situations that push an institution like Komnas HAM also have to work with regional and international perspective in conducting their duty and mandates. As NHRIs, we have several functions or duties. We can promote human rights by encouraging government to ratify conventions, which there are many already. The main problem is how we can encourage governments to implement the convention or the international human rights instrument that have been ratified by governments. For Komnas HAM, we have particular mandate to do investigation on human rights violation, including the gross human rights violations. Thank you. We can also give education and trainings, not only for civilians, but also for state officers, the police, the military, the executive body, and so on. But NHRIs, among the 6 countries who have NHRIs, we don't have similar mandates and authorities. Some have strong authorities, others have less authorities, particularly the one that now is facing political oppression, such as in Myanmar, who perhaps may not be able to speak freely about the situation within the country. So what others that can the NHRIs in ASEAN region do? Before I explain, I would like to mention who are the 6 countries. Is anyone here know which 6 countries of ASEAN already have national human rights institution? Indonesia for sure, Filipina, Thailand, Malaysia, Timor-Leste, Thailand, yeah, and Myanmar. I heard Debbie laughing from the back. Those are the 6 countries which already have national human rights institutions. As I explained, the situation, the mandates, the capacity of each of the NHRIs are not the same. But we work together to find ways how we can contribute to the region within our mandate as national human rights institution. So since, if I'm not mistaken, 2007, these NHRIs have set up a forum called the Southeast Asia National Human Rights Institution Forum, which members now are Indonesia, Malaysia, Suhakam, Thailand Human Rights Commission, Philippines Human Rights Commission, Timor-Leste, who is not yet full member but already accepted as member and with the new roadmap to be full member, and the last one was Myanmar. Myanmar was accepted during the time when there was an opening up for democracy and human rights in Myanmar. We didn't expect that the situation would be degrading after that. So we have to deal with Myanmar Human Rights Commission as member of the CNF, who try to work together in addressing human rights situation in the region within our capacity as national human rights institution. When I heard Ibu Yuyun explain about the challenge to work as ASEAN human rights body, the ICHR, which I almost forgot all the rules of procedures since I left this crowd, I can imagine how difficult it is to find common agreement from the government, from the member state, to agree on the work or in addressing human rights situation, as they keep putting sovereignty, territory, political boundaries as the first interest that they must consider, while neglecting or ignoring the situation of the people who in reality face the impact of human rights. I think what explained by Ibu Mercy Indi Barnes, when I heard Barnes, I always remember the celebrity. Sorry, Ibu Mercy. Ibu Mercy Barnes explained even as MPs, parliament member who have political powers, she doesn't always have power to tell the government. This is also happen with MP members in other ASEAN countries. So what can we do? I would not exaggerate saying that the NHRIs have done something great or contribute so much. But at least from the experience, at the moment, at least Komnas HAM, Suhakam from Malaysia, Commission on Human Rights in the Philippines, we have agreed to cooperate in addressing the issue of statelessness. How we are going to do it? It's still ongoing, but at least we agree that there are some statelessness issues that are transnational, cross-country issues. And as human rights institution, we might be able to address that and to tell our government within our given mandate. Komnas HAM and Timor-Leste Commission, PDHJ, we just talked about having comprehensive cooperation in the future in addressing human rights situation as neighboring country and former countries, countries who have to deal with serious human rights situation. So those are some of examples that as NHRIs, Komnas HAM, and other NHRIs in this region trying to develop in addressing concerning issues on human rights. We don't know yet. Again, we will need the support of civil society who always come to our office and telling us, this is what you have to address, this is what you have to do. And if possible, you bring up this to the government and to other NHRIs in the region. So I will stop there, and I'm looking forward for more discussion in this forum. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Ibu Atika, for the presentation. So that concludes the speakers, and we have heard from them now. We would like to hear from you, because this is a dialogue, and we would like to invite, due to the limitation of time, we would like to invite 3 participants to give interventions or comments or questions. So I see one hand. Oh wow, a lot. One, there's a gentleman over there, and then, right, 2, and, okay, step down first. I'll count 1, 2, 3, and then one more, okay? All right, 1, 2, 3. Yes, you in the middle. No, you, yes, yes. All right, so, okay, 1, 2, and then 3, please.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
And if you can make it succinct, thank you.
Yes, okay, we all know that ASEAN is actually, with regards to human rights, is literally of no use because of the fact that it has got a consensus decision making. So ASEAN couldn't make a position on Myanmar because Myanmar is a member state and Myanmar would definitely say no. So ASEAN cannot make. So the question is that, is ASEAN also becoming a hindrance to member states actually on their own actually taking a human rights position? We saw with regards to Myanmar that some countries like Malaysia, I think so Indonesia, member states actually did speak out. So what's your opinion on that? Now, to Yuyun as well, in terms of when will ASEAN actually set up an ASEAN Human Rights Commission? When will it actually set up an ASEAN Human Rights Commission where people can actually lodge complaints, where the Human Rights Commission can inquire, investigate, and come out with its decision or opinion? Or is it not going to happen at all? Because that's what we would want to have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, let's collect first. The lady at the front, please.
Thank you very much. I think that this panel is very good panel. So my question is to Yuyun. Yuyun, I would like to know about the mandate of the Asia to receive the violation case that submit to you, why you send it to National Human Rights Commission in each country, and how that is working in each country at Human Rights Commission
Sorry,
at national level.
can you repeat and speak louder because we couldn't hear it?
Okay.
Yeah.
First, I would like to ask Yun about to receive the violation cases that submit to Aisha. Protection mandate to the Aisha. But however, when the Aisha received the complaint cases that violated by perpetrator, but why Aisha send the case to the National Human Rights Commission of each country? And I asked Anike, how that you working on these violation cases that submit to you by Aisha? And for Ibu Mercy, I also would like to support you. It's very good point that you raised is up about the intervention. That is in principle, but in practical, they usually government, they also communicate among themselves to arrest these people, to kill the human rights defender in each country. For example, Laos human rights activist was killed in Thailand. That because of intervention of government to government. Many of the Burmese CDM was stuck in Thailand because Min Aung Hlaing communicate with Thai government, not let them go out. We work very hard to set up some protection mechanism for CDM, Myanmar CDM in Thailand, but it's never happened because government and government intervene and then they talk about them. And also UNHCR cannot do anything in Thailand because of intervention of government. So this is a very important point that I think that all of us should be raised is this issue up to the ASEAN. In our statement also should be include this issue. There should be take out the non-intervention principle because in practical they do a lot of intervention among government and government. Many disappearance in this region you also can see. One Chalerm, Thailand, also disappearing in Cambodia. There are so many cases that we can raise this up. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And last question from the gentleman in the middle. Can you stand and then so that people can see you?
Hi, so it's gonna be similar questions. So basically, we has heard a lot this few days and also so far about the uprisings of the authoritarianism and also the militarizations in the regions. And we also has heard a lot about the non-interference as it has been a key principle for the ASEAN member states. However, I would like to hear from all the panelists for your personal analysis and perspective over this non-interference principle. Do you think it should be considered remove it or revise? Or if it is should be revised, how and why? And another question, because it's almost similar with the first and the second questions. So another question I would like to ask about any specific law or policy you think it should be a replication for all of the ASEAN member states to be take it into their national their national law or policy. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a wrap up for the intervention, and I would like to give the space to the panelists to perhaps respond and also sort of like giving your concluding remarks because we also quite run out of time at the moment. Maybe Ibu Yuyun first.
Thank you for the questions. First is on a consensus. Because of there is a Myanmar in ASEAN, then we cannot have a consensus. I don't think that is a picture now, because Myanmar is no longer in the decision making in the leaders level. and also at the foreign ministers level, and they are the one who make decision in ASEAN. So I think the problem is not Myanmar at the moment, other countries supporting Myanmar, so that's the problem. Hardly get any consensus on something that ASEAN leaders would like to take as an action to Myanmar from other neighbors. I think Chalida already mentioned one of them. So I think that's our problem now. Consensus continue to be the norm for making decision. But from my point of view, consensus can be a challenge, but also can be used as your tool. In my work in human rights, very often member states propose something that against human rights. I use consensus. Non-consensus, I vote. So that proposal will not happen. At least within still me in ICHR. So we receive a lot of situation like that. So I don't think consensus only work for one side, but also work for the other side or the other purpose. And I'm using a lot in ICHR. In terms of complaints, as you know, the review of the TOR continue to be blocked by member states, so we cannot go further for review. But at the moment, we are trying all possible means. So for instance, having the 5-year work plan of ICHR, having grievance mechanism. At the moment, we have a complaint mechanism with very limited procedures. I will go into that answering Chalida's question. We also have a country visit, not in our TOR, but in 5-year work plan. And we just did the country visit by invitation of Government of Indonesia to Bogor. So we try as much as possible protection mechanism what we can. All possible means. At the moment, fact-finding is something very difficult to do, but we have been tabling in the meeting of between ICHR and AMM. That's our time to report to the foreign ministers of ASEAN that ICHR should be given a mandate to do fact-finding, especially on the issue of Myanmar. ICHR should be given a mandate to public hearing, to hear the grievances of people in Myanmar, and that report can be sent to AMM as their basis of decision making. But these are suggestions are not necessarily responded positively by ASEAN member states and at the AMM. So complaint mechanism, next year we are going to start the discussion of Human Rights Index. The Human Rights Index is included in 5-year work plan. So rather than saying human rights monitoring, we call it Human Rights Index. Of course, it is going to be difficult discussion, I know, but we should start talking about it. And are you also mentioned about Human Rights Court? ICHR should not, cannot, and shall not establish Human Rights Court because ICHR is commission. The court need to be established by the leaders. Another way, we can have, I can see the path, having protocol of the ASEAN Charter. So that's the way. So court never be established anywhere in the world by commission because court is more legally binding. There is the decision legally binding, but commission is quasi-court. So if you expect ICHR to establish court, I don't think that's possible and should not be tabled in ICHR. No, never, cannot. So it should be the leader's decision. The path to do this is by having a protocol to the charter because charter is legally binding. So it is going to be difficult. Now, as of now, ASEAN has no dispute settlement mechanism for conflict issues. We have on economic issues, but not on political issues. The one that's supposed to be, the one that Indonesia imagined on dispute settlement mechanism now become the research institution named ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. So it shows how difficult it was. And Chalida asked why after receiving cases ICHR sent to NHRI, because ICHR has not arrived at consensus in relation to admission of the criteria of admissibility. So that is why we have to consult the National Human Institution first, whether the cases that we receive are in their responsibilities, because we cannot overlap. This is not only in ICHR, everywhere in the world. If you submit cases to special rapporteur, there will be a question whether this case already done at the national level or not, in terms of court, the response of National Human Institution, the government, and so on and so forth. But after that, then you go to the regional. So we follow that kind of procedures. And that's also apparently can start communication or cooperation between regional and the national human institutions. At the moment, ICHR has a regular meeting with SENEF. Ibu Adniki mentioned about Southeast Asian National Human Institution forums. So we have that annually, but to be able to arrive this kind of meeting required 10 years for ICHR to agree. So everything is just difficult, but we just continue pushing whatever we can given the time that we are there. And in terms of my view on non-interference principle, non-interference principle is a tool. If you remove it, member states will use other tools. So it is not the fault of the tools, the fault of the user of the tools. Like a knife. You can use the knife for whatever you want, but there is no fault of the knife if kill people. The murder, the person. So I don't see it as, I know that other region, like for instance, Africa use non-indifference. In Europe, having the margin of, I cannot remember, margin of appreciation. So these kind of particularities or certain norms exist, not only in ASEAN. But if you read more, which countries in ASEAN use non-interference the most? The dictators. So I don't see a non-interference principle. Yes, it always create a lot of problem because it was used and it was effective. The one that now happened in Myanmar is already violating the non-interference principle. Our event on ASEAN Human Rights Dialogue already violating the non-interference principle. Whether non-interference principle is still the principle of ASEAN? Yes, because it's international norms. But the way and how we use it, that's important. I use non-interference principle in ICHR as well. Very often, for the purpose of ASEAN. I don't mind Indonesia being criticized. I'm the one who criticizes Indonesia, and I receive a lot of cases from Indonesia and presented that cases in ICHR to normalize the discussion of human rights violation to be for the purpose of the need of response. But it is, I think it is my personal view, of course, not ICHR views, not ASEAN views, not Indonesian government's views. Non-interference principle is only tools. Users who use it and maximize it, that's the problem. And there are a number of scholars in the past, including CSIS, providing a lot of different or alternative interpretation of non-interference principle. So, Ibu Mercy, because in your recommendation is to remove, to take out the non-interference principle, alternative interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mbak Yun. So Ibu Mercy, kemudian Ibu Atika, dan Bapak, including your conclusion remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I can add some point of view related with many of you give the questions or comments related with the non-interference principles in the UN Charter. to become like a hindrance or handicaps to tackling the human rights issue among the Asian countries. Actually, that's right, because there is no other protocol under the under the non-interference principles. That's why, if because we have to get all the approval from all countries to remove or to redefine our Asian Charter. So if we need a short or intermediate approach, then we have to develop like what we call it a practical protocol under the non-interference principle, especially to tackling the human rights issue. I'm not sure how to make it, but this is our voice in this event to make verified of the non-interference principle to add practical protocol for that. The second one, why to become the hindrance? How come all the Asian leaders is very slowly to tackling the human rights issues? Because there are many typology of the regimes in Asians. Junta military regimes, what we call it like a democracy regimes and like Islamic Sharia regime, etc. So we need many what we call it barrier when we talk about the democracy, because very different perspective when we talk about democracy from the perspective of the ideology of politics and regimes from each country in Asian regions. So this is the first one, and the second one is very slow to tackling the issues, because in Asian Asian body, they already have the Asian human rights, what we call it, Human Rights Commission, but I don't know, somehow inactive for, and I don't know why, but when we talk with Ibu Retno, they already talk deeply about the situation, about the Asian human rights issue among the Asian regions, and how to make it active again of the human rights issue, and talk about all the critical human rights issue among the Asian region, and how to make it to solve it and tackle with the good and effective protocol. Beyond the regime, beyond the differentiation of the regime, and beyond the differentiation of the ideology of the governments. The third is related with when we talk about the Asian community. We are not instrument. We are living ideology. How to make it our ideology for the prosperity of Asian, for the better Asian to become true. So it's not depend on the methodic approach. It's not only depend on the instrument and mechanism, but how to make it all the mechanism and protocol and charter and whatever the decision of the Asian leader to make it happen, to make it implemented effectively through all the Asians. So it's not about the narration, not about the, right now, how to implement all based on the 41, after the 41 Asian Summit in Nusa Tenggara. Oh, sorry, 43. After the 43 Asian Summit. So after that, what is the next? How to implement all, to make all the system from bottom up and top to the bottom line work together to make all things can be happen and tackling for the better future of Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Mercy. Bu Atmika.
Hello, Chalida. How are you? I'll try to respond in one response for all the respondents or participants who give comments or questions. I agree with the other speakers here in expecting that ASEAN will soon change the ASEAN principles of non-interference and non-consensus. That would be an impossible mission. Because the principles are made by member states of ASEAN, and it will not change if there is no political change in all the 10 countries that could agree to have a change in the principles. What kind of change can we expect? At least there should be a special condition on making a decision without consensus or voting rights on really serious situation concerning the security, the human security, the human rights of the people in the region. But even with that condition, I don't think it will happen with the current political situation in all the 10+1 Timor-Leste member state. So what should we do then? Should we just continue trying? Yes, I think we should try, but how we are going to try, that's what we need to keep thinking and change. We have to be strategic, but again, we have to keep our endurance. And one of the things that I appreciate is that the ACSC APF continue despite of the challenges. And I know from one year to another year of ACSC APF, it was never the same. Because this kind of meeting is being held in different countries of ASEAN with different kind or different characters of governments, political, cultural, and sociological and economical situation. But when this is held in a country where we can speak a little bit freely, then we have to do the most. It is the people who move the heart and the mind of the governments in responding to what is happening in each of the country and in the region. As Komnas HAM, we don't have a say in ASEAN meetings. We can speak in UN Human Rights Councils. We have a slot of speaking, but not in ASEAN meetings. That's the reality. So as National Human Rights Institution, I think we can still try to use the window of opportunity that we have. As Komnas HAM, we receive complaints and reports on non-citizens, as I said. We are now handling the case of Mary Jane, a Filipino who is in jail and is being given verdict for death penalty. We are receiving reports on refugee of Rohingya who is now situated in Aceh. We can do something on that together as long as the civil society are always meeting up like this and sharing and discussing issues concerning human rights in each of our countries. And hopefully, with the change in political situation in some of the countries, and the NHRIs will have the capacity and mandates to work even stronger together in addressing those situations. I'm not going to say furthermore as if I'm giving you promises that I cannot keep in the future. But let us always meeting up and sharing our concerns and bring our solidarity together within country, among countries together, whether as civil society or as national human rights institution. Hopefully we can always find window of opportunity. So thank you from me.
Thank you very much. One last word.
in my private capacity, this one, I just would like to say something. That I am an optimist. So I am very optimistic actually about the future. Of course, we are confronting or facing many challenges, but the evidence already show that ASEAN is basically adaptive enough to go along the challenge that they are confronting. That's one. Two, I have actually noticed there are some generational change. In Indonesian case, it was in Department on Foreign Affairs and the military. And that also occurring in some places, including in Malaysia, even in Singapore, Brunei Darussalam, and in the Philippines. I happen to be a tutor or teacher on the military reform and some military academy in Asian member countries. And I saw the difference between people who were basically born sometime in 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, including Indonesia. So that is actually, I'm optimistic. Of course, regarding the principle of non-interference, for example, it might be still there. But if you imagine 2030, so the next, say, 15 years, there will be some significant change, either from technical perspective, for example, by complementary effort, like how to devise a protocol on A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth, or defining a new principle, like it has been tried by some other, including CSIS in the past, like changing or shifting the notions of intervention or interference into constructive engagement and whatever to call it one. But of course, one thing is certain, that you need actually to define the threshold of intervention, something like that. A threshold for intervention, whether it is about humanitarian or gross violation of human rights, non-dirigible, whatever you call that one. So this is some technical issues, I guess, but I am an optimist that we can resolve eventually. If not now, it could be in the next 5 years or even 20, 30, and this kind of stuff. So yes, so don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we concluding the dialogue, and then let's give a round of applause for all of us. And so I just want to announce that the new workshop schedule will be from the 11:15 to 12:45, and then it will be continued by lunch from 12:45 to 1:30. So that will be the new schedule. So if you would like to prepare yourself for the workshop, please prepare, and then you may leave the room now. But for those who want to have a longer interactions with the panelists, we also encourage you to stay, and if there is any other issues that we'd like to discuss. So thank you very much.
And I would like to give the gift for those who ask questions, and I choose the one in the middle to receive this gift from Indonesia's chairship to ASEAN.
Dear distinguished participants, we would like to inform you that unfortunately there will be no specific time allocated for coffee break. We will directly move on to the parallel breakout workshop. As the snacks are now available at the workshop location at this building, basement 1 and basement 2. Just grab it before the workshop starts. The participants will be guided by the committee to the assigned breakout workshop rooms.
The first workshop will be taken. The first workshop will be taking place from 11:15 to 12:45. Then we will have a lunch break after the workshops. For the lunch break, it will be held at the sports hall and will last for an hour. I repeat, the first workshop will be taking place from 11:15 to 12:45. Then we will have a lunch break after the workshops. For the lunch break, it will be held at the sports